So today we're going to be talking about the mid game. The mid game is really where the games are won and lost. And especially with all of the developments in the meta, right now the mid game is where you'll find the biggest difference between players that actually understands how the game works versus players that are just running around like a headless chicken. And in this particular example, I think we got the perfect example of the domino effect in the mid game. And it's a little bit of a tempo related concept that is basically the reason why one single mistake can lead you to either winning or losing a game on the instant in the mid game. And it may sound crazy that one mistake or one thing that you do in the mid game just absolutely explodes the game. It can also be from the enemy's perspective. One mistake from the enemy can just instantly explode the game. And that's kind of how the game has been evolving towards. There's so many skirmishes, so many objectives that every single decision that you make in the mid game has insane repercussions and value. So we're going to be starting off by analyzing this game state. And what we see is that overall, we're doing quite well as a team. We got 1 dragon, we got 5 grips, means we got more objectives than the enemies. We got the feats of strength. We're slightly stronger in general. And overall, we're doing quite well ourselves as a Roa. We are playing versus Syndra. We got ourselves nice the Mercs, which also works really well versus the Nunu. Our top lane is absolutely shitting onto the enemy Urgot, so we got a massively winning top side. Our jungle is also winning the jungle matchup and scaling harder because it's a Zyra, of course. And bot lane, slightly behind for sure because of the bad support matchup. But honestly, they are not out of the game by any means just yet. There's a few other things that we have to note. Our team has very limited engage, very limited multi-threat. We have a little bit more of team composition where we want the enemies to come into us, play it as a little bit of a choke point control with the Zyra and with the Melio, and that means that we need to be quite early on the objectives and prepare those objectives to have fights that actually go into our favor. But we see from the enemy team compositions, they have a very explosive team comp with the Nunu, with the Syndra, with the Blitzcrank, a lot of pick potential, and Zyra can follow up on that CC. So if we play this game out controlled and without any chaos, it's going to be very hard for the enemies to actually get picks onto us, and we can then play towards our superior area control and also just our pushing side lanes, because at the moment we still have double pushing side lanes, and that will lead to us easily taking home the dub in this game. So to make a specific win condition plan from this current state and low state here, because this is a time where if there's nothing really happening on the map, currently we're resetting, we can think about how we're going to be solving this game state and winning it. What we see is that in this particular situation, we recognize that the Herald spawning in 8 seconds and the dragon spawning in 1 minute. So Herald is always a nice objective to play for, but I reckon it's a little bit more of a bonus objective. I think the dragons, in this case, are a little bit more important because the dragons, especially the 3rd and the 4th dragon, can be used as a little bit of a magnet in the sense that you can draw enemies in and force them to fight in their position where it's not really advantageous for them. For context, this is a Master 150 LP game and a game that I reviewed from a client last week. So that gives you guys a little bit of context where this is played out. And yeah, in our current situation, we're in a fantastic position. So what we got to do is, in this case, is recognize what's the next objective. We see next objective is going to be the dragon that we want to be playing for. 1 minute. Perfect. We can absolutely set up for that after this little reset. That means that with currently we have Renekton on bot, Lucian in base, and top lane wave shoved in. Beautiful stuff. So usually, right, whenever we want to play for next neutral, is we like to be on the strong side of the map. But in this case, Renekton is stronger than us and has no TP. So Renekton can be on the strong side of the map completely fine. And that means that we can just like go onto the weak side. And as long as we just stay safe, we're going to be completely fine there as a row. And we can always TP in or shove and move towards that objective if we want to. So all we have to do in this game is just play for the dragon right now. And then we're going to be completely chilling. So in this situation, let's see what happens, right? We see that this Aurora in this case just nicely takes yourself a reset. And what I always look for in my reviews as well is, do they recognize what the next play is? And I think what we see right here in chat is that he's pinging the next neutral objective to the dragon. He absolutely recognizes what the next play is. So that's amazing. If we can play for this dragon, and if we understand that we need to play for this dragon, that's half of the job done. Now all we need to do is make sure that we prepare it properly and execute in the potential fight that breaks out. So what I would do is with a minute onto the dragon, what I want to do is ideally I want to have push prio onto the final mid lane wave before the dragon spawns, which is not this one. It's potentially the next one or the one after that. I didn't really spot the exact timers of the waves. But since we're in control, we're not really in a rush onto the dragon anyway. So that means that currently, what I would do is I would go top, right? Prevent Urgot from ever getting anything in return right now. Push out the wave, and then we can potentially shove and move towards mid lane, take mid lane control into the dragon. We can always TP them back towards top to defend, or we give top tier 1, that's fine. That's sometimes okay if we can at least get a bot tier 1 for it. Doesn't really matter. It really is the specifics of the game. But generally speaking, what I would do is I would try to make sure that we can get a little bit more of extra top IO. So I love the fact that he initially, with 50 seconds on the Drake right here, opens up towards top lane and then tries to catch that wave. Otherwise, we're going to be giving Urgot a lot of time to just play upon the map. The most important thing that you want to do is whenever you want to be playing high percentage and you're ahead and you want to control areas, is you want to play after you push out waves. Shove out the wave, force the enemies to respond, and that gives you an easy, free opportunity to then take control of an area, and the enemies then cannot really do anything because they're still responding to the waves. So that is going to give you vision control and area control, and then make it hard for them to enter. But what we do right here is that we actually teleport towards mid. And this teleport to mid, right, I instantly spotted it already in the review. End of review. Game losing. Why is this such a bad TP? Well, in this situation, our Zyra wasn't really ready to play. We have no hard engage, no multi-thread on our team. But the worst thing that happened is that we have no push on the top lane wave. So what happens right now is if the enemies just get out and they stay safe, what will happen is that with this fight happening, we are not going to be in a good position of the game because Urgot is getting a lot for it on return on top. We see a very similar position that Renekton actually makes a very similar mistake. Renekton now actually moves mid, doesn't achieve anything. At least he gets a kill into the Syndra, but in general, he doesn't really achieve much. While he could have just kept hitting bot while no one was there on bot. Same for Urgot. I don't know what Urgot's doing, but Urgot just made the mistake of not hitting tier 2 top. There's 5 people bot side. Why would he not tier 2 top? That's a free tier 2 turret. We see 3 mistakes from 3 100 to 200 LP master players in the span of 15 seconds. Because all they have to do is just nothing. Hit turrets when people are not responding towards you, and just make sure that you play for the next big neutral objective. These fights right here that are happening aren't like these aren't necessary fights. You see that Urgot eventually gets a very nice pickup, gets a double kill, Renekton shutdown, and by this brute forcing on mid on the wrong time of the game, we lose top tier 1, we lose complete control around mid, we give shutdowns, and what also happens is that we now lose the dragon on top of that. The worst thing that happens right now, and this is why I call it the domino effect, is because now we are down tempo. We don't have a single pushing wave state. So what we need to do right now is we need to try to get back into these pushing wave states so we can then look to make a play, a high percentage play on potentially a man advantage. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be moving up towards top. And what you see is that the rest of the team is now going to try to do the exact same thing. They're going to try to push the wave. We're going to try to get a little bit more of control. And in this case, of course, the next neutral is up towards Rift. It's going to be a little bit tricky to contest. Not impossible, but definitely tricky. So we now also recognize, hey, the enemies now also take the Rift. So this is all of the follow-up effect because of that one bad teleport that we did on towards mid. In the meantime, right, we have 0 vision set up anywhere because we have no pushing waves. So it's impossible for people to get vision. Then what happens is that we get pushed in towards top, push in towards mid, and then the enemies utilize all of this pressure to now use this pushing wave set on top right here to hard force upon Aurora's team upon mid. So this is purely tempo-related hard force. Urgot uses his time very smartly to get bot side control, and then the team of Aurora takes a fight because they try to get vision back, which then leads them to them dying. They get aced, and then eventually we just lost control of the entire game. Now, of course, there's an argument that the team of Aurora shouldn't have died here. But I actually think that it's completely logical that they died. Because the reality is we had no vision control. We tried to get vision back, which leads to, in this case, the enemies very nicely collapsing onto us with their heavy big composition that they have with the Blitzcrank, the Nunu, and a beautiful map read from the Urgot, which leads to a position where game just explodes. In a matter of 3 minutes, the game just absolutely boomed. And of course, we also die on top lane right here from the Aurora, which is unfortunate. But then from this point, right, it's just end of review. Like, we can just stop playing the game. And that all because we messed up one single TP on mid. So I quickly want to rephrase, take a look at another look at this particular TP. So what we do right here is we get the mid turret, we reset, and we recognize the next play is going to be the dragon. All we have to do is just push out the wave states, force the enemy to respond, get a man advantage fight. If Urgot's responding to the top lane wave right here, we just move down. We take a 5v4 instead of a flip 3v3 at bad timers with the wave states. And then this entire game just walks smooth like butter. And that's the power of pushing out waves and forcing enemies to respond. If you have the waves in a good position, all of these plays are so much easier to make, because even if you then get into a position where you lose the fight, if your wave states are in a good position, the enemies cannot really get anything with it anyway. Very similar as if you win the fight and your waves are not in a good spot, you cannot really get anything anyway. What happens if they kill the Blitzcrank right here? Nothing. They still lose top tier 1, they still lose bot tier 1, and yes, they get a little bit more control for an objective, but if you blow like 3 ults for that, it's not like we can randomly then fight again onto the objective. We gotta understand the timing of when we want to be investing our tempo and when we want to be moving on specific plays, so we time it up properly for specific objectives with proper wave states, so you don't lose anything on the back end as well. And this is what I see a lot of people struggle with, is they overforce fights, they try to do too much, and then you lose the flow of the mid game. And the mid game is, it's not like individual plays all the time. No, the mid game is constantly going because of the concept of tempo, right? If you got all the waves pushed in, you need to first push out waves, invest time, and then retake vision, which is what a lot of people like struggle to understand. And mid game is not, it's not as simple with a lot of individual plays. It's all interconnected. So mid game is hard as fuck, guys, right? Don't try to, like, we cannot really undersell. Mid game is going to require a lot of detail, a lot of reviewing, a lot of outside perspective, and just a lot of curiousness as well. And what I would recommend for you guys, if you ever find yourself in a position where I just think like we were in a decent spot, we're even or ahead, and we just lost the game in the mid game, try to go towards the point in which that everything went to shit. And then you want to go like 60 seconds back, and you want to try to figure out what you're exactly playing for, what your win condition is, if you're communicating it, and if you're doing that consistently. And I can guarantee you, 95% of the case, either one of these things is not being done or not being done properly, so we're not playing properly for it, which means that we're then putting ourselves in a position where we're just playing low percentage League of Legends, and we can just rather flip a coin.